The 20th century heralded a new era of storytelling marked by unprecedented technological advancement, social upheaval, and global conflict. The world was rapidly transforming, and with it, the way people perceived their surroundings and their place within it. This tumultuous backdrop provided fertile ground for a literary revolution, giving rise to a new breed of writers who dared to challenge the conventions of the past and forge new paths in storytelling. These writers were not afraid to break away from tradition and explore new, uncharted territories in literature. The novel, once a relatively stable form, became a site of radical experimentation, reflecting the anxieties, uncertainties, and exhilarating possibilities of a world in flux. The very fabric of society was being rewoven, and literature mirrored this dynamic change. Gone were the days of straightforward narratives and clear-cut moral pronouncements. In their place emerged fragmented perspectives, unreliable narrators, and a willingness to delve into the darkest recesses of the human psyche. This new approach to storytelling allowed for a deeper exploration of the human experience. This shift in literary sensibilities was driven in part by groundbreaking discoveries in the realm of science. Albert Einstein's theory of relativity shattered long-held notions of time and space, while Sigmund Freud's psychoanalysis unveiled the hidden depths of the subconscious mind. These scientific breakthroughs fundamentally altered the way writers approached their craft. These scientific advancements had a profound impact on how writers perceived the world and the human condition. No longer content with merely representing external reality, novelists like Virginia Woolf, James Joyce, and D.H. Lawrence sought to capture the complexities of human consciousness, exploring the inner lives of their characters with unprecedented depth and nuance. Their works delved into the intricacies of thought and emotion, offering readers a window into the human soul. The early 20th century also witnessed a seismic shift in the social and political landscape. The rise of industrial capitalism led to unprecedented wealth for some, but also created vast inequalities and social unrest. The gap between the rich and the poor widened, leading to widespread discontent. The women's suffrage movement gained momentum, challenging traditional gender roles and demanding equal rights. Women were no longer willing to accept their subordinate status in society. These social and political upheavals found expression in the works of writers like E.M. Forster, who explored the clash between tradition and modernity in novels like Howard's End and A Passage to India. Forster's works highlighted the tensions and contradictions of a rapidly changing world. The old order was crumbling, and the novel became a powerful tool for examining the fault lines of a society on the brink of transformation. Writers used their craft to question and critique the status quo. The First World War, a conflict of unimaginable brutality and scale, left an indelible mark on the 20th century psyche. The war's devastation was felt deeply by all who lived through it. The horrors of trench warfare, the unprecedented loss of life, and the shattering of long-held beliefs led to a widespread sense of disillusionment and despair. The war changed the way people viewed the world and their place in it. This collective trauma found its voice in the works of a generation of writers who had witnessed the war firsthand. Erich Maria Remarque's All Quiet on the Western Front, for instance, offered a harrowing glimpse into the dehumanizing realities of trench warfare, while Wilfred Owen's poetry captured the senselessness and brutality of conflict with unflinching honesty. Their works remain powerful testaments to the horrors of war and the resilience of the human spirit. The trauma of World War I seemed to amplify the sense of fragmentation and uncertainty already brewing in the early 20th century, casting a long shadow over the cultural and intellectual landscape of the time. Traditional literary forms, with their emphasis on linear narratives and clear moral messages, felt increasingly inadequate to capture the complexities of a world shattered by war and grappling with rapid social change and technological advancements. This led to a period of unprecedented experimentation in literature, as writers sought new forms and techniques to express the anxieties, disillusions, and fragmented realities of the modern age. One of the most significant literary innovations of this period was the rise of stream of consciousness, a groundbreaking narrative technique. This technique sought to capture the fluid and often chaotic nature of human thought, reflecting the inner turmoil and fragmented consciousness of individuals. Pioneered by writers like Virginia Woolf and James Joyce, stream of consciousness narratives abandoned traditional grammar and syntax, allowing thoughts and impressions to flow freely across the page, creating a more authentic representation of the human mind. This technique allowed writers to explore the inner lives of their characters with unprecedented intimacy and depth, revealing the hidden anxieties, desires, and motivations that lay beneath the surface of their actions, often unspoken and unseen. Another key development in modernist literature was the use of multiple perspectives and unreliable narrators, which added layers of complexity to storytelling. This technique, employed masterfully by writers like William Faulkner and Ford Madox Ford, challenged the notion of a single, objective truth. By presenting events from multiple viewpoints, often contradictory and fragmented, these writers forced readers to confront the subjectivity of perception and the elusiveness of truth in the modern world, making them active participants in the narrative. The experimentation of modernist literature wasn't limited to narrative techniques alone. Writers also challenged traditional notions of plot and structure, seeking to break free from established conventions. Novels like Virginia Woolf's Mrs. Dalloway and James Joyce's Ulysses eschewed conventional plot-driven narratives in favor of a more episodic structure, focusing on the inner lives of their characters and the significance of seemingly mundane moments, elevating the ordinary to the extraordinary. This emphasis on interiority and the exploration of subjective experience marked a radical departure from the realism that had dominated 19th century fiction, opening new avenues for literary expression. The rise of modernism wasn't universally embraced, and it sparked considerable debate and controversy. Critics often accused modernist writers of being elitist and inaccessible, their works too fragmented and obscure for the average reader, creating a divide between high and low culture. Yet, despite the controversy, modernist literature left an indelible mark on the 20th century novel, influencing countless writers and reshaping the literary landscape. By breaking free from the constraints of tradition, modernist writers expanded the possibilities of fiction, paving the way for future generations of writers to experiment with form and content, ensuring that literature would continue to evolve and reflect the complexities of the human experience. The shadow of World War I loomed large over 20th century literature, shaping the themes, styles, and concerns of a generation of writers who grappled with the conflict's devastating legacy. The war's impact was not just immediate but also long-lasting, influencing the literary landscape for decades. The unprecedented brutality of the war, the immense loss of life, and the shattering of pre-war optimism left deep scars on the collective psyche, creating a pervasive sense of disillusionment that permeated society. This led to a profound search for meaning in a world seemingly stripped bare of certainty and hope as people struggled to make sense of the chaos and destruction. One of the most immediate literary responses to the war was a wave of realist novels that sought to capture the horrors of trench warfare with unflinching honesty, providing readers with a stark and often brutal depiction of life on the front lines. Erich Maria Remarque's All Quiet on the Western Front, published in 1929, stands as a powerful example of this trend, offering a poignant and harrowing portrayal of the war's impact on soldiers. Through the eyes of Paul Baumer, a young German soldier, Remarque offered a visceral and deeply moving account of the dehumanizing realities of life and death on the front lines, capturing the physical and emotional toll of the conflict. The novel's unflinching depiction of the physical and psychological toll of war resonated deeply with readers who had experienced the conflict firsthand, as well as with those who had been indirectly affected by its far-reaching consequences. This connection extended to a wider public grappling with the war's devastating legacy, as the collective trauma of the conflict continued to shape societal attitudes and beliefs. The war also profoundly impacted the development of modernist literature, influencing the themes and techniques of writers who sought to express the fragmented and disillusioned nature of post-war society. The sense of fragmentation, disillusionment, and the questioning of traditional values that permeated post-war society found expression in the experimental techniques and fragmented narratives of writers like T.S. Eliot, Ezra Pound, and Virginia Woolf, who sought to capture the complexities of the modern world. Eliot's landmark poem, The Waste Land, for instance, captured the spiritual barrenness and disillusionment of post-war Europe through its fragmented structure, allusions to classical literature, and bleak imagery, reflecting the pervasive sense of despair and uncertainty. The war's impact wasn't limited to immediate responses. The trauma of World War I continued to reverberate in literature for decades to come, shaping the works of writers who had not even been alive during the conflict, as they grappled with its enduring legacy. The trauma of World War I continued to reverberate in literature for decades to come, shaping the works of writers who had not even been alive during the conflict, as they grappled with its enduring legacy. Evelyn Waugh's satirical novels, such as Decline and Fall and Vile Bodies, for example, exposed the moral bankruptcy and spiritual emptiness of post-war British society, offering a biting critique of the era's social and cultural norms. While Graham Greene's novels explored themes of guilt, betrayal, and the search for redemption against a backdrop of political intrigue and moral ambiguity, often shaped by the war's legacy, reflecting the complex and often contradictory nature of human experience. The exploration of war trauma extended beyond the battlefield, encompassing the psychological and emotional scars left on veterans and those who remained at home as they struggled to rebuild their lives in the aftermath of the conflict. Writers also grappled with the psychological and emotional scars left on veterans and those who remained at home, exploring the long-term effects of the war on individuals and communities. Rebecca West's sprawling novel, The Return of the Soldier, offered a sensitive portrayal of a soldier suffering from shell shock, delving into the complexities of trauma and recovery. While Virginia Woolf's Mrs. Dalloway explored the lingering trauma of war on the lives of those who had remained in London during the conflict, capturing the pervasive sense of loss and disillusionment that defined the post-war era.